morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is The Take on this Thursday morning. We're excited for the day, of course, and you look back to this week already. Shortened week, yes, but Tuesday made up for a lot of that. Big, huge day on Tuesday, a rocket ship to the upside. Then we get over into yesterday. We have a nice, strong move to the upside. And then in that final couple of hours, and we've seen this happen many, many times over the last year and a half or so, it's that final 15 minutes, 30, hour and a half, 2 hours. Let's call it 2 hours. We actually pulled off dramatically off of the highs of the day and actually still finished okay, but finished in negative territory for the Dow, down about 40 points, and NASDAQ sort of the same thing, down about 15 points. So we gave up a lot in that final couple of hours, at least from the highs of the day, and then pulled back a little bit. But the S&P, same thing, down about 5 points yesterday. Nothing big, but, especially given the fact that we had that huge run that we did on Tuesday, kind of expect to see a little bit of a pullback, but you were wanting to put together day after day after day, which we clearly did not. You look at the 10-year, though. 10-year right around 315, and I look over at the 2-year at about 306. Now, here's the deal. It's been pulling back and pulling back and pulling back off of those highs. It was not too many days ago that we were close to 3.5 for both of those, the 2 and the 10s. So interesting to see this pullback. That's why I think we have been seeing a little bit more on the bullish side. And that's something that definitely stands out. The volume yesterday was a little bit light, underneath 35 million contracts yesterday. I look over at volatility, kind of hanging around 29. Yes, we got back underneath that 30 level. A lot of different things going on. You look over at crude oil. It was not too long ago we were faced with 220, 222, 223, or excuse me, 120, 122, 123. But 105 is where we find ourselves now. And we had to actually rally at the end of the day to get to that level of 105. Shows you a lot about what's really going on behind the scenes. And we are seeing a lot of movement behind the scenes, even on a day where it looks like the markets were relatively flat when you're just looking at the close to close. So closed underneath 20,000. That was the Bitcoin move. And that's something we've been watching very closely. Obviously, over the weekend, everybody was watching that. We're getting more and more news about some of the issues that are going on within the Bitcoin and quite honestly, the crypto community. So that's been something that's definitely been stealing a lot of time and some headlines as well. Healthcare yesterday had a really, really nice day. Pushed to the upside, nearly 1.5%. But it was energy to the negative. It was materials to the negative, actually down more than 1%. Tech and industrials, they were a little bit negative, nothing terrible, but down about 0.5% or so. DaVita, that name was a name that absolutely has been bouncing around like crazy and shows up each and every day. Yesterday had a pretty nice bounce to the upside. We had Clorox as well. That's one of the names that we've been talking about a little bit here and there because we've been focusing a little more on the staples as they've become a little bit more involved with the markets themselves, not the usual flat staples. They've been moving around a little bit. Moderna, Netflix, you get the idea. Also the housing, the builders, we're seeing a little bit of a move to the upside. Take a look at Lennar. Take a look at D.R. Horton. Those names having a pretty decent move to the upside of late. Yesterday, a pretty nice move. And then you look over at DocuSign, Okta, United Health. United Health has had a couple of back-to-back days that have been very, very key and very interesting to watch as that stock has had a pretty nice bounce back. Obviously, we talked about healthcare being one of the strong areas. We look over at Altria, a little bit away from the healthcare world. But Altria, MO, not so good. Freeport Mac, it's been just kind of steadily pulling back each and every day. Then you look over at those beta energy names. You look at APA, you look at ConocoPhillips, EOG, Phillips 66, all getting pounded a little bit yesterday. Some of the Chinese names joined in as well. PDD, JD, Baidu. A little bit of a reversal on some of that today, however. Honeywell, Dow, you get the idea. A lot of big names out there that we're definitely pulling on the markets. But you get into today, and now we're in day 3 of the week. It's obviously a shortened week, but day 3 of the week. So what do we got in front of us? Well, we started off pretty solid, but nothing huge, not a huge move to the upside. Up 50 or 60 points on both the Dow and the NASDAQ. They've both kind of started to accelerate a little bit higher. At one point, the Dow was up at least 200 points. Last I looked, it's been consistently holding around in this first hour, up about 100, 120 points. NASDAQ's starting to make a move. Now that's up about 100 points. It was up 50 or 60 points early on. Throw in the S&P up about 20 or so points. Crude still hanging around that 105, 106. Not a lot of movement there. 10-year around 3.1. The 2-year broke back underneath 3. So that is a little bit of a trigger. Maybe that's, and we've been talking about those algorithms that are set up. You take a look, we've been talking about they've been set up around that 3 level for the 10-year and the 2-year. Well, specifically when that movement has been moving further and further to the downside and now suddenly cracking underneath 3, that may be why we're seeing a little bit more of an accelerated move that we're seeing, at least right now, in the NASDAQ. We'll obviously be watching that very, very closely. Volatility still hanging right around that 29 level. We did recapture 20,000, about 20,500 for Bitcoin. So that's something that stands out a little bit. Some of the moves early on, we had the energy space not doing a lot. Next thing you know, it's down about 1%. Financials down about 0.5%. Materials down about 1%. But you've got staples, you've got consumer discretionary, you've got certain areas that are starting to float the markets up just a little bit. Looking at that housing, the builders once again, it's D.R. Horton, it's Lennar, it's Pulte having a really, really sharp day today, as well as Best Buy having a pretty nice day as well. Occidental, Oxy as we call it, Buffett again adding even more to that name. So that's giving it a little bit of a push on a day where we're seeing some of the other names in energy not really doing so well. DocuSign doing pretty well. PDD up nearly 6% today, along with Baidu. So some of those Chinese names having a pretty decent day. Then I look at Walgreens, and of course, we talk about healthcare. Merck having a pretty nice day. But it's not all roses out there. You got Mosaic. You've got a name like Freeport Mac, which has been steadily pulling back each and every day. Got something to talk about right there as well. You've got Deere, we've got Zoom, you've got Moderna, you've got Cisco, you've got Boeing, you've got Caterpillar. You get the idea. There's a lot of push and pull. So we've got some leadership, but we also have some pulling that's going on right now. As I mentioned, certain areas of the market, financials and materials, slipping just a little bit more along with some of that energy as well. I've got 2 unusuals for you. And, oh, by the way, I will be on the halftime report today. There may be an issue there, though. We're going to have some conflicts going on with Chair Powell. Obviously, very important to hear what he's got to say. And obviously, they're going to be grilling him pretty well, as they probably should, talking about a guy who I think is extremely smart, but did they get a few things wrong and were they a little bit slow? Absolutely. And I know that they would admit that themselves because they are people of great standing. So I do think they understand that transitory was probably wrong. They understand that they were a little bit too slow to react, but they're ready to react a lot better now. And obviously had that 0.75 of a point move just not too terribly long ago. But it seems like we're going to see more than just that one. It seems like we're going to see more than that as we go through the rest of the year. We'll see how that all plays out. So as we get into today, we got 2 unusuals. I will be on the halftime, but we'll see if we actually have a halftime today. Freeport McMoran, I just mentioned that one. It was trading right around 30.30. Now, this is a stock, as I mentioned, that was well above that 40 level. Here we are back down towards 30. 5,300 of the July 33 calls getting bought. So buying a little bit of time, going out into July, going up just a little bit at 33. Those are only going for about 75 cents. So that's a pretty decent size buy early this morning right out of the gate. I got another one, and I'm getting more and more in the ETFs. I don't like doing them, guys. I like to have individual names, get better bang for your buck, but sometimes it does make a little bit more sense. In this case, I think it does as well. EWG. Now, we've had Canadian, we've got the FXIs, the Ashers, we've had this, we've had that. EWG, we're talking about Germany now. And again, not looking that great when you look at where this is on a 52-week, but here we are at 23.30. 15,000 of the July 22.75 puts. So 22.75. That's the strike. Going for about 40 cents, 42 cents, something like that. Now, these are the puts. Now, what makes this interesting is stock's already gotten kicked in the teeth. It's already pushing down towards those lows, but they're also a smart trader out there who's rolling down. They already were in the July 24.75 puts, selling those and then buying these 22.75 puts. Always like seeing that. That's a very interesting trade. Looking for even more downside for Germany. And obviously, anybody who's been paying attention to a lot of what we've been talking about Europe and certain ETFs there, ETFs that exclude Canada and the United States. Now we're talking about Canada, we're talking about Germany, we're talking about China, we're talking about a lot of the different countries around the world. And we're seeing more and more option flows in a big way in many of these various names. So keep an eye on that. We'll be obviously highlighting that here on the take. But We've got ourselves a really interesting day in front of us. We'll see how it all plays out. Get educated, understand what's going on in the derivatives markets. Yes, we did have a little bit of a slower day, but I got to tell you, 35 million contracts, that's still a monster day if you just go back a couple of years. We're averaging a little over 42 million a day right now here. So we are off of that average, but of course, it's summertime as well. Folks, have a great day at trading.